Welcome back to this new inspirational video. Today I wanted to answer a question somebody sent in, and they asked the following. How can we surrender to our imagination over the senses? Another question they actually followed that up with was, do you think letting go is important, or are you a believer of persistent assumption? So I just wanted to take the time to answer this based on what I do in my own life and how I go about stuff. First of all, to surrender to our imagination over the senses can only be done if we truly understand the difference between sense perception and imaginative vision. So we are always confronted with where we are and where we want to be. Basically, where you are is obviously visible to you through your senses. Right now, if I look around me in this room, I know where I am, physically speaking. What we're talking about is where are you mentally? Mentally speaking, you are where your imagination is telling you you are. Now let that sink in. If you want to surrender to your imagination, it means every single day you're going to have to train and practice focusing on the vision of where you want to go instead of being worried over where you are physically speaking. So with me, every day I gotta be aware. I am actually naturally aware of it, we all are. But by training this, you become more and more effective at becoming aware and staying aware of where you want to go. And that is a vision inside your consciousness through the imagination. So in order to surrender to your imagination, to me, that would mean the ability to stay focused on where you want to go. How do you develop that ability? Again, it is by understanding the difference between sense perception and imaginative vision. That's really all there is to it. If you understand the difference, it becomes a matter of choice. What am I going to focus upon? And as you practice it then, more and more, it becomes easier and easier not to be disturbed by what the senses are dictating. The senses should only be used in order to move around through your world. Physically speaking, you use it to make sure that you can, navigate through this whole dimension of time and space, so to speak. That's literally all there is to it, at least from my point of view. That's how I would look at it. I use my senses to make sure that I can do stuff, physically speaking, that I want to do, that I need to get done. But I use my imagination to help me focus on where I actually want to go and grow with my life. So in order for me to surrender to my imagination, what happened to me was to understand that clear difference, again, between what am I focused upon. We grow up, we start out in life, most of us, where we are so trained to live through the senses alone that whenever we have a dream, because the senses don't tell us how we could achieve it right away, there's no evidence usually that tells us how we could go about our dream, we automatically let the dream go. We don't understand that if we stay focused on what the imaginative vision dictates and indicates to us, we will attract the resources and inspiration, everything we need in order to grow there. This is a fact. This really works. We have to trust in this process. With me, any goal that I set, it does the same thing. I can focus on that inside my imagination, and therefore I start to grow towards it. I don't really care about what my senses are dictating anymore. Again, this is part of that surrendering process, learning not to care so much about what the senses are telling you. Neville Goddard would say, can you really believe that you are now the man or woman that you want to be, even though reason denies it and your senses deny it? All that's being asked of us is to really believe in the imaginative vision over sense perception. At first it sounds almost crazy, but again, we do admit you use the senses, of course, to a certain extent, to navigate through your world. So we're not saying that you have to dismiss them entirely and then get in all sorts of issues, physically speaking, because you're not paying attention. Not like that. So that is my description of it. I think that if you keep studying the videos I post, or perhaps from other YouTubers, or read books on the mind, if you're into that as well, I do that all the time personally, what's going to happen is if you keep studying this sort of material more and more, you're being reminded of the power of imagination. And as you do so, as you're really emotionally involved in studying this kind of material, you will learn to surrender more and more to your imagination. You change that paradigm around, that programming of the mind around through which you usually operate. And then you no longer have to worry about how to surrender to your imagination, because you know from personal experience, as you keep practicing this, that the imagination is that power inside of you that helps you to achieve whatsoever you desire. And if you understand that this is the truth, if you know this from personal experience, it becomes so obvious how to surrender yourself to that vision instead of to what the senses dictate and are doing. Because you can't deny how useful it is to have the power of imagination inside of your mind. Now, your next question was, do you think letting go is important? Or are you a believer of persistent assumption? I would have to say both of them are important in their own ways. I know that letting go might be considered as letting go inside of consciousness of what you want, like letting it go. That is part of some people's teachings, but what I would say in a way is you want to let go of your old self so that you can embrace the new self, and then as you do so through persistent assumption, by mentally staying focused on what you want, you will learn to grow there more and more. And that is very important. You see, persistent assumption is about just that. And letting go to me means letting go of your old self. It is like sacrificing who you were so that you can embrace who you want to be, what is to be. Persistent assumptions are what Neville would talk about in his own way as well, that you have to make sure that you stay focused on where you want to go inside of your imagination. So you see, these two parts, they play a role in and of themselves. In a way, it's like you stay focused on where you want to go, but at the same time you also have to learn to let go of any of the worries that surround that dream. That's all there is to it again, from my point of view. You have to learn to let go of certain contradicting things, whether it's physically or mentally. Let go of that part. Don't let go of your dream. That makes no sense. That's kind of silly, because you do want to stay persistently focused on the direction that you want to manifest as your reality. If you don't do that, you might miss the mark. That's what sinning means. Neville Goddard would say it himself. To sin means to miss your mark in life. In order to stop missing the mark in life, you're going to have to stay focused. You don't want to be, what was it? A double-minded person, or at least there was a saying in scriptures in the Bible. I apologize. I mean, it's a very famous one, but you don't want to have your mind go all over the place. So you need to become of singleness of purpose. This focus needs to be exclusively directed at the result that you aim to manifest. That is persistent assumption in action. Do you know what sort of results you're after for yourself? Whether it's wealth, career, or health goals, weight goals, whatever it is, relationship, I don't care. But are you focusing exclusively on the result that is to be manifested? You don't have to worry about how difficult it will be to achieve it or how long it's going to take. Stuff like that you need to let go of. What you do want to do is persistently focus on the result that you want to manifest. And then if you combine these two elements, perhaps that sort of gives you some indication on how to go about these two powers of consciousness. And that is sort of how I work on it from personal experience. I hope this sort of enlightened you on some parts. Maybe it didn't, but that is honestly all that I can say about it based on the questions you asked. So hopefully it also helps some other people that are currently struggling in their own ways, because this is very, important. This is something we're confronted by all the time, especially if you're a new student or even if you have been studying it for years. Even for me, I've studied this for over a decade. Every single day I do have to remember the difference between sense perception and imaginative vision, because if I forget about that, it's so easy to fall back into limitations. The limitations of the senses. And at the end of the day, it's not that you're being a bad person or anything. You just have to understand the power of your own mind and how it operates. And then it becomes easier and easier to make a decision, again, between the power of imagination or the power of your senses. So what's going to happen though if you do this right? If you learn to focus on your dream in this manner as we are preaching, you will start to also notice elements of your own imaginative vision show up, physically speaking. And so in that sense you use your senses to simply enjoy physically speaking, the realization of your own dream. That is the order in which it all should be, instead of letting the senses stop you from realizing your dream because they are telling you that you might be limited or can't achieve it, or you don't have the resources currently you would need. You learn to focus on your imagination first and foremost, and then learn to use your senses to enjoy the very thing you have manifested. That is much better, I think, than to be, under the spell of the senses that are perhaps holding you back. And it's holding most people back. It's holding them stuck right where they are because their whole mind is focused on how things are. And if we stay focused on how things are, then we're never going to outgrow anything. But if we start to embrace what could be through the imagination, then how things are will change around. And then you'll understand how to surrender to your own imagination. It is all based from personal experience. You have to learn how this power works from personal experience and experimentation. That's how I have done it, and that's how all the great teachers throughout history have been doing it, and that's exactly how you're going to become one of those people that's doing it as well. And you'll be able to inspire your friends and family wherever you want. You'll be able to do whatsoever you desire. So good luck on your journey, and if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. Now, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to receive inspirational videos on a regular basis. And with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.